meeting was called as a special meeting. And our first order of business is to approve committee reappointments. Greg Hutchins, who was chair of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee, reached out to 64 board and committee members whose terms are expiring. And he's had a positive response. I believe it's 49, and I think Jim has one more to add to make it 50. 9 people above that responded no, that they were not interested in being reappointed. So you people have all received the list of individuals for reappointment to committees. Jim, I believe, would like to add one more individual.
Yeah, I would propose we add Ron Beck to our list of reappointees. He's ready and willing to serve another term on the Water Resources Advisory Committee as a full member. That would be a full 3-year term.
Okay.
Until 2024.
Okay. David?
Yeah, I don't know what it does to the count. Maybe it's still 49. But Sandra Hines is listed twice. It doesn't really matter. It says the same thing, but it's on 2 lines. It's like 6 up from the bottom on the first page, and
yes,
somewhere on the second page. Oh, it's 6 up from the bottom. Of the
yeah, yes, got that. So how would you like to, are there any questions or comments that members would have on any of these individuals who are seeking reappointment? Jim?
I just had one comment on the general process. This is the first year, I think, that we've had the agreement that if people applied and were accepted by the VCC to serve on a committee and a committee had members that had served a long time, more than 2 terms, that the select board liaison would have the opportunity to consider whether to ask that person to step off the board to make room for a new person on the board. Now, it turns out that this year we didn't need to actually do that, but I just wanted to remind us as the liaison to the VCC that we are in this new era where it's wonderful to have new people to apply, and in the past we've told them no in the case of a board being full, even if it had long-term members, and now we have the option of bringing people onto boards and rotate the membership if that seems appropriate, given the workings of the committee and all that. So I just wanted to remind us that we're in this new era.
Okay. Further comments? How would you like to approach this? Would you like me to read each member, or can we and then approve them as a group? Or are you satisfied that we just approve the list that's been submitted to us that would have been prepared by Lisa Tommel? Jim?
I don't have a preference. That's fine with me to have a general motion to approve the entire list as written.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, as amended.
As amended with Ron.
Yeah, and we're removing the duplicate Sandra and adding Ron Beck.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. So is there a second to Jim's motion as amended by David?
I'll second that. But may I also ask for, in the Ron Beck's case, the sheet has 2 more columns. Is he a full member?
He's a full member.
What would his term be? 3 years?
3 years.
Yes, it's a full member to expire at the same time as the other full member of
6/30/2024.
Yeah. Thanks for double checking that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so David, if you call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant.
Aye.
Ms. Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Charter.
Aye.
Mr. Benson.
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. So our second item is constable appointments for a term of 3 years. The individuals are John Cicciolone, Denzel White, Joseph Topel, Dave Allen, and our own Mark Hall and Brian McMullen. I think Jim had a threshold question as to what does a constable do?
Yeah, what are the duties and responsibilities? And
Okay.
if I make someone a constable, can they arrest me? And, that sort of thing.
No, they can't do that.
Okay.
No, just from my own career with it, they serve legal processes, and John could explain what those processes are with respect to a constable serving. These are not employees of the town. They have their own separate businesses, and they charge for their services by the assignment. So, John.
Thank you. Yes, and I've actually called upon a longtime constable, Mark Hall, to provide a little more context to the role that he serves and also the other role that constables serve.
Right. So like you said, Mr. Chair, one of the primary responsibilities is to serve judicial process. So that would include subpoenas, no trespass orders, anything that comes out of the land court, probate, things like that. It's all handled between the court and a private service. On the local side, which is why you see some staff listed, is that as part of the general law, it's our responsibility to post notices of town meetings, as well as elections and any other processes directed by the selectmen. And in looking it up to answer this question, it is a fairly old appointment, and I found that they also have the responsibility to prosecute violations of profane swearing and illegal gambling.
You're wide open, Jim.
Yeah. I'll have to stop swearing at my poker games.
So, are there any other questions? And John, we just pay them for the service they perform by assignment.
That's right.
Okay. So, are there any questions or further questions or comments from board members? Okay. So, if they're not, can we then have a motion to appoint as constables for the town of Acton for a term of 3 years, John Cicciolone, Denzel White, Joseph Topel, Dave Allen, Mark Hall, and Brian McMullen? Thank you, John. And is there a second? David. Okay. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, just one. Was there some sort of open process to look for these constables? I'm wondering what how we located these folks.
John?
No, not a nationwide search, so to speak, but we have our staff ones that we use for the staff-related ones, and there's people that are in the constable business that reach out to us and offer their services, and there hasn't been a huge demand for these roles, so it's not something that's been a focus of mine, but I'm happy to look into it if you'd like me to.
I'm always curious about, opportunities to increase the diversity of the people we work with in various ways. And it seems like this might be an easy way into that, but I don't really know much about the constable business, so I don't know if that's worth pursuing. But just to mention it.
Yeah, my experience is a lot of these, from the ones that I've worked with in my practice years, they were court officers by the day, paid by Middlesex County, and then in the after hours and on weekends they serve process. They have a business.
Okay.
Sometimes it's heady work.
Mm-hmm.
David.
Can I ask if these are all of our constables or just the ones whose terms are expiring this year?
John?
Mark or Lisa, would you happen to have that answer?
To my knowledge, we researched the list and decided to freshen it up and appoint all of the ones we had on the list for a new 3-year term starting upon your appointment. I believe it's all that we have. And the selectmen are authorized to appoint as many constables as they deem necessary for up to 3 years.
Okay. I understand there may be some public comments. Matt?
Yes, we had one hand go up between items. This is going to be from a dial-in user, so if you can let us know who you are and where you're from. You should be able to speak. It is star 6 to unmute. Maybe not.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the appropriate slot for citizens' concerns?
No, we weren't doing citizen concerns this evening. It's a special meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Then I withdraw my request to comment.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, if there's no further comment, David, if you call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay. So our third new special business item is the discussion of status of our subsidized housing inventory. John, please, if you'd lead the conversation.
Sure, thank you. So this item is on the agenda just to bring the board with everybody have the same understanding of where we are with our subsidized housing inventory. As a reminder, that is important for us to track and understand, because if you maintain 10% of your housing stock as affordable, you're able to essentially be much more selective with the type of affordable housing and 40B projects that are brought forward. And right now, the community, we have what's called safe harbor, which is a term that basically says the Board of Appeals can deny a comprehensive permit or grant one with conditions if we meet a few different criteria. One being that we've added a certain amount of housing units in the previous year, and that we've also have an approved housing production plan. So we currently are in a safe harbor status because we, the town of Acton, has 10.57% of its housing as affordable. We have 896 units that we have credit for out of the 8,475 in the community. And we also have an approved housing production plan. And the biggest project that brought us over the threshold most recently was the Powder Mill, the apartments at Powder Mill. That's the 230 unit project on the South Acton near the Maynard line. And because of the timing of that project, it appears that we will be slipping out of safe harbor, because one of the conditions of this status is that the project start within a year of being approved by the Board of Appeals. And since the Powder Mill project received its comprehensive permit on August 10th of 2020, that would mean that they'd have to be, already starting constructing it by August 10th of this year, or we would no longer have the safe harbor status. Based on some communication.
John, just to correct you on one point, a developer has a year from the date they're awarded their comprehensive permit, and the developer for Powder Mill was awarded, I think it was August 10th of 2020. So within 1 year, August 10th, 2021, they would need to obtain their building permit. That's what they're not going to be able to do. And that's why we fall out of safe harbor. If they, the comprehensive permit is good for 3 years. So if either this developer or a successor developer of a project goes and gets their building permit within that 3-year time frame, we would go back, the project would go back on the subsidized housing inventory. And from the date they get their building permit, they have 18 months to build the project and get their occupancy permit. So it's a couple of steps there, but we will be falling out of the 10% safe harbor. I'm sorry, John.
That's basically the story.
It's a tricky thing. We've been, John and Selby and I have been following, the project since the comprehensive permit was awarded last August, as to how far along they were. Did they get their special permit? And we saw during the course of as you got into the late fall, there were, pandemic, related issues that were, causing difficulties, most notably the cost of wood, and the project being built pretty much all with wood, and wood had gone up 300%. And when you're dealing, with 40B projects, their profits are capped, so it gets very dicey. And then we heard during the course of the winter that the developer was looking for bring in partners, or sell the project. And what we understand is happening now is the developer is trying to sell the project again. So this may just go off into space for a while. And the exposure, from my perspective, that it gives it opens up the town to is a potential 40B on the Kmart parcel. Because the developer is going to, if we're out of the 10%, and that information will get around among the developer community, that the Kmart parcel would be fair game. So for the next board, that's a very practical consideration as you look at the various options, whether it's the National Development Senior housing, assisted living, memory care, or the idea of just flat out buying the parcel with an idea of putting a community center there, or just buying it to make sure other things don't happen on the parcel. So good luck. Any other comments? And certainly we'd like to open it to citizen comments. Adine.
Well, I think certainly it's not a great situation to be in, but I wouldn't focus solely on the Kmart parcel. I mean, if you're talking about a 40B, it could go any place. So I know everybody seems to be laser focused on that one vacant building, but technically a 40B could go anywhere in town. That's the whole point behind it.
That's correct.
Yeah, we're at risk, but we've been at risk for a long time. We thought we got out of it. Now we're back in it. But certainly the fact that this might be happening in the background is not going to make me suddenly decide that, sometime in the middle of August, we should have a special town meeting and pony up $6.8 million to buy the Kmart's parcel. The facts do not support that. Thank you.
David.
Two things. Just one is just a comment. I believe that we need 182 affordable units to reach 10%. And that's by my calculations. And so the Powder Mill Place is a little bit more than that. And then second is I know that when we were on our way to 10%, when we hit 8%, there was a temporary or partial safe harbor.
Nava?
Harbor. And so, can John tell me what that 8% harbor is?
Yeah, yeah. What that was in 2019 when what we called Avalon 2, that was about 85 or 86 units received their comprehensive permit. And that gave us a special 2-year safe harbor from, I believe it was some point in July of 2019 to some point in 2 years later in July 2021. So that still has probably another month to, that safe harbor still has another month to run. That project has proceeded. Then when the powder mill went on, we got 2 safe harbors. There was the 10% safe harbor, and also because it was 230 units, they gave us an additional safe harbor running for 2 years from August, I think it would be August 10 of 20 to August 10 of 22. And that would have covered us because there's going to be a reset number based on the 2020 census later this fall, which we won't quite be at until the building permit is obtained for 446 now Tavernier Village. So, there's a number of different things in play, if that answers your question.
Yes, that's very helpful. And how does one get to that 8%? When you pass from 7 to 8%, and you continue to have, good progress, and is there a way that we might ask to be put back in that state or something?
Well, here's what we might ask. This was John's, question to us. Would we consider writing a letter to the Department of Housing and Community Development to seek an extension of our safe harbor status for 1 more year to account for the delays associated with the pandemic? I think Vinny Catone, who is the developer, came down with a case of COVID and was sidelined for a month. Several of his employees contracted COVID as well. Also, I think the real issue was the cost of wood going out of sight that caused him to pull back and seek help. It's kind of a Hail Mary long shot. I think they've been in this situation before, not with the pandemic, but with special circumstances. But I would suggest we give it a try.
Yeah, I would say that would be good to give it a try, and it might be worth to get either use the letter we have from the developer or ask the developer for a supplemental letter indicating, the delay because of the pandemic and maybe what his aims are, depending on if he knows them, if he has specific plans.
Yeah. David, just to be more specific to your question on these 2-year safe harbors, our magic number to hit was, I believe it was 848 to get to 10%. And if you get a 1-year safe harbor, if you get 42 affordable units, a 2-year safe harbor if you get 84 units. So with Avalon 2, it was 86 units were being produced. So that got us the 2 years, 2019 to 2021. And then certainly with Powder Mill with 230 units, that got us 2 years because it was over 84 units. So
I see. Thank you. That's very helpful. So what you're saying is it wasn't the fact that we hit 8%. It was the fact that we had Avalon development that had, in this case, more than 84.
Yeah, 848 is the key number. So it's
yes.
84 is 10% of 848.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there is a request for public comment.
Sure. Thank you, Matt. Please.
This is going to be another call-in user. They should be able to speak.
Hi, this is Chair from West Acton. I have a couple of questions and then a comment.
Sure, please.
Okay, so if I interpret what you're saying about the partial safe harbor or the temporary that we the town, has till August to decide whether it wants to buy the Kmart parcel if we want to protect against it. Not saying that we do, of course, that's where my heart is, but so it's the August deadline of, is that really, that's what I was getting from what you were saying. Is that?
Yeah, it's, you know, the two powder mill safe harbors, the 2-year safe harbor, which goes through August 10 of 22, and the 10% safe harbor, we technically would fall out of those two safe harbors on August. It would be August 10th, 2021. And what we're trying to do is see if we could get an extension on that due to extenuating circumstances.
Okay, and then what about the sewer rehab expansion that there's an obligation by powder mill? Is that all on hold too then?
John?
No, the project is going to continue to move forward as proposed. We would time the work depending on resources that are available, so that if it was delayed another 6 months, for example, we weren't scheduled to start much of the work until next year anyways, but we would just make sure the timing works before we get too far along.
Okay, and then just as they call it in bridge preemptive move, if the town expressed interest in the Kmart parcel as a formal request as part of an eminent domain taking process, not that we would, just asking a question, then would the sale of such a parcel to a potential 40B developer not be able to take place? Is there a way to push that off? I mean, obviously they have until November, because at any point they could buy the lease back from Kmart and sell. But if the town put some kind of notice of interest, is that something that would be a preemptive move? And I believe it's 5 million or 5.5 million. We've been hearing quotes under 6 million for that parcel of what they'd settle for. But it's just a procedural question. I'm not saying that we want to do that. I'm just asking if we put that notice forward, how that changes the formula relative to when somebody could submit an application for a 40B.
Jim?
I think I have answers, but I would like to check them out with you, John Benson. So the first question is, the first thing is that even if we did have some process with Kmart parcel, it wouldn't prevent a 40B developer from developing, proposing somewhere else. So this is very specific to the Kmart parcel. And the second thing is, at the last time we discussed this, it seemed to me there was a quote about making an offer which would allow us to pay $10,000 a month in order to hold on to an option. So that might be a partial answer to your question, Tara. Is it might cost the town about $10,000 a month to hold on to the right to buy the parcel.
I forgot about that, but that's interesting. But my question, I guess, wasn't completely clear. It was about the window of, like, the vulnerable window. So August 10th, and then for how long is the window open? Does it require somebody to buy the powder mill parcel and the development rights and the permit?
No. The window would open on August 10. That's when we would, technically fall out of safe harbors, the two safe harbors. to get back into safe harbor, you'd have to the developer, this developer, a successor developer would have to get their building permit. And it's a
Okay,
complicated
so-
one given the extent of the project.
So basically, it's a day-for-day lag, or I guess I didn't understand. I guess I don't understand how Powder Mill Place could get us onto the safe harbor or 10% list or whatever it is, and then simply because they haven't processed something, now it's off. And how long would that be? I guess it would be unknown.
No, no,
But-
it's their rules are simple, and if you think about it, the Department of Housing and Community Development, their job is to promote affordable housing, and if they've if a comprehensive permit has been granted, to a developer, and that project goes on our inventory, they're going to want to make sure that the project actually goes forward and gets completed. So they set these time standards in there, 1 year to get your building permit, and then from the date you get your building permit, you have 18 months to complete the project and get your occupancy permit, and your comprehensive permit is good for 3 years. So if that's helpful.
Yes, it is. I still can't quite visualize how long the lag is after August 10th and when it actually closes.
Well, as you know, with 40Bs, there's a process that they have to go through. They don't just start, building it. They have to go through a process, introduce themselves to the town. Is it going to be a friendly 40B or an unfriendly 40B? And then you have to get your go forward letter from the state, and that generally takes a couple of months. So, you're not going to have a 40B starting on August 15th.
But can't they, once the window opens, aren't they allowed to submit an application? And then if the window closes, we don't then.
What window closes?
So suppose at August 10th it ends. August 15th they put an application in, and then August 20th somebody buys Powder Mill and gets a building permit in a month. You don't then say to the person that submitted the 40B application, too bad. Our
40B application for what property? All right, so let's say somebody on August 15th submits the time frame is a little scrambled that you're putting where it's not very realistic. But to use it, if somebody comes in and submits, starts up a 40B process for the Kmart parcel on August 15th, and then on August 31st, the developer of Powder Mill gets gets the building permit, we would go back on the subsidized housing inventory, and it would save us. We'd be back in safe harbor, and we could stop any. I think the developer at that point would give up on the Kmart parcel under your scenario.
Okay, so it wouldn't be like Piper Lane where we weren't allowed to use the safe harbor. That somehow they submitted the application before the safe harbor.
There are a couple of steps there. I'm just blanking on the name of the approval document they get from the state agency. It's basically the go-ahead to pursue your special pursue your comprehensive permit.
Oh, that's right. And they need the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen has to say A-OK for that, don't they?
No, not at that stage. Not at that stage.
Oh, all right.
If what they were able to do there is they got their state letter before the Avalon project was signed off by the state. They already had their if I remember, no, they had to get their comprehensive permit. The timing wasn't right. The South Acton people got their got their go-ahead from the state first.
Got it. And where is it? Just one more question about the 10,000 a month. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, well, that was a scenario Dean put up if we were interested in the property.
But was
what
that
we-
our idea, or was that Kmart? I mean, Shop and Shop's idea.
Stop and Shop's idea.
Oh, I love that. That's a great insurance policy. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Are there any further public comments, Matt?
Mr. Chair, there are 2 additional requests.
Sure, please.
Alyssa Nickel
Yes.
should be able to speak.
Thank you. This is Alyssa Nickel on School Street in South Acton. I just wanted to comment that I think it's interesting that I'm hearing everyone talk about 10% as being the key number, and I understand that that's the state established minimum, but there's not an insignificant number on Acton's subsidized housing inventory that are actually not affordable, because in the rental properties like Avalon and future Powder Mill, those are all counted, but 75% of them are not affordable. So I just want to remind the board and the public of that. However, that safe harbor that we are in until August is really critical for the town to maintain control over what gets built under 40B. We have to have the ACHC approve it. We have to have the select board approve it. So I think that it's critical, and I do appreciate the suggestion from Mr. Benson to write to the state and request an extension on that safe harbor. I have heard Acton referred to as the poster child of affordable housing for DHCD because Acton is so committed to increasing its affordable housing quite successfully. In our comparison towns with the housing production plan, Acton was actually more affordable than all 7 other communities that were selected. And speaking of the housing production plan that was updated last year, the certain number of units that we aim to create each year doesn't have to be from new construction. Creating affordable housing could be rehabbing and deed restricting the existing naturally affordable units, of which there are thousands. And the appendix to the HPP, I think it was dated 2018, stated that there were 30 to 40 units that are sold every single year under $200,000. And every single year that goes by, the cost of those units is going up. So I just want to use this opportunity to put a plug in, hopefully for the new board to set some goals in July. The HPP #1 goal was to create those units primarily from rehab, so possibly considering a rehab housing trust, applying to the CPC for CPA funding to get that started for seed money. It doesn't cost very much, maybe $50,000 to rehab one of those units and resell, and we can just steadily add numbers because, as you know, our denominator is going to continue to grow up as new construction happens by right when new subdivisions are built. So it would be great to have the board and also the ACHC act on that priority and that stated goal. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. And next, Matt, please. Next
One more from Janet Adachi.
Janet.
Hi, I'm sitting here. I thought initially I saw in the chat that there were like 20 people who were waiting to speak, but maybe that was 20 people in the audience. I don't know. I thought,
Scare them
oh my
away.
goodness. Don't allow audience members to have like 20 follow-up questions because then you'll get them or you'll bog down. But first of all, okay, my first comment has to do with the idea of acquiring the Kmart parcel by the town to save it from development. I would really like to see the Kmart parcel become a revenue generating property of some sort. So I am not keen on the town acquiring yet another parcel that people will claim they can make money off of or whatever. I really think that we need to kind of strengthen and support our commercial tax base. Sorry, I'm just seeing a chat says, yeah, 20 people in the audience. Okay, fine. My mistake, I was reading too quickly. Anyhow, the second thing is I'm a little bit concerned about the talk about falling below the 10%. It's not an occasion, should be an occasion for gloom and doom. For years before we broke through the 10% barrier, the town was below 10%. And with the exception of probably Avalon Acton, I think that most of the projects that we were dealing with were on the small scale side. We were fortunate with the guidance of Nancy Tavernier and other people who are very astute about affordable housing to work with developers who wanted to get along with people in town who supported affordable housing. And so we ended up with so-called friendly 40Bs, which tended to be very small scale. I mean, what that means, of course, is you're inching toward 10% for people who are keeping track of 10%. But at the end of the day, as Ms. Nickel commented, this SHI is not a true measurement of affordable housing units in town because it does count like all rentals that are part of 40B. So it overstates the number of actually affordable units, which of course also there doesn't include the actually affordable units that are sort of naturally affordable units. And ultimately, if you're an advocate of affordable housing, you should care about what the needs are in town and whether the actually affordable units, whether they're officially on the SHI or they're out there on Great Road or somewhere else, are sufficient to serve the need in town. And we could talk about this forever, but I just wanted to make those points. Don't be afraid of dropping below 10%. It's not a reason to panic. It's not, I really would be very surprised if some developer just, if there were a flurry of interest in building a mega development on the Kmart parcel, in the next, several weeks or whatever it is. And I would support finally the proposal to communicate with the DHCD about getting an extension of time, given the unusual circumstances that the past year has created for everybody, including developers. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, are there any other individuals who wish to speak?
There is one more hand that just went up.
Please.
From Franny Osmond.
Franny, please.
Hi, Franny Osmond, 16 Half Moon Hill. I don't think 10% is anyway enough because 25% of the people in Acton are considered low income. So for all the reasons people have all been talking about, I think we definitely need to not even stop when we do get safe harbor, but I'm encouraging of all of you to make the decisions you've been talking about to try to stay in safe harbor. And I wanted to encourage you to do everything we can to ease the process for the powder mill development. And maybe if that means some kind of creative support from the town for the development in ways, whatever the hurdles are, I just want to make sure that we try to make it as easy as possible.
Thank you, Franny. Okay. Is there anyone else, Matt, who wishes to speak from the audience?
That is it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just for Ms. Nichols' point, it was the town, John Mangiaratti's suggestion to us to reach out and the Department of Housing and Community Development to seek an extension of our safe harbors. That's his credit. Jim.
I'd be happy to make a motion that we ask John to go ahead and communicate with the DHCD about getting an extension of our safe harbor status based on the COVID-related delays.
Okay, is there a second? Second, Joan. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so David, if you call the roll, please.
Sure. Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay, so John, you go ahead and send the letter under your own name then.
Okay, thank you. I will. Appreciate it.
Okay. So item 4 is to discuss the open meeting law complaints dated June 9 and 10, 2021, and delegate a response. We received 4 open meeting law complaints from Stephen Ballard of Boxborough last week. 3 concern the review of prior open meeting law complaints, and 1 regarded the CARES updates, the updates that I've been sending out since the pandemic began last March. And then with regard to the 3 that alleged improper review or delegation of Mr. Ballard's past O&L complaints, the board has received and reviewed those complaints. They've all been in your packets, and you all, I assume, have looked at them. Nina's office has consulted with the Attorney General's office. And, you know, based on that conversation, I believe that the prior response to Mr. Ballard was sufficient, and I do not believe there were any open meeting law violations. And I don't think that, you know, any further action is needed on those there's any further responses needed on those 3 complaints. And then with regard to his 4th complaint regarding the chair's update, Mr. Ballard sent us notice today that he is withdrawing that complaint based on a decision from the Attorney General's office that was issued today, that 2 similar complaints that he made based on my chair's updates on December 8th and December 15th. The Attorney General's office ruled that those were not deliberations by email outside of a properly posted public meeting. So there's no response needed on the 4th complaint. So from board members, is there any discussion? Jim?
The other thing about the Attorney General's write-up about the updates that was helpful for me to hear was that those notes also didn't constitute early drafts of minutes. So I was pleased by the Attorney General supporting the action of, you know, increasing transparency by getting an early word out to people about the you know, the goings on of the board. So I'm glad that that's you know, been ruled legal now. That's the only comment I have on that one.
David?
Yes, you know, I've read through these the 3 complaints that are still the 3 complaints we're discussing tonight, and they're very confusing. Right, they're kind of indirect references to a meeting where meetings where we corrected other open meeting law violations, and you know, I have to say it's kind of, you know, and maybe at best they're confusing. They're so indirect here. I don't think that there's a violation either, and so I agree with the point that, you know, I don't believe we need to take any action here. We don't believe that there are violations.
Okay.
And one follow-up question from David.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I don't think there were violations, but what I'm a little confused about still is why we don't need to either write back or have someone write back to Mr. Ballard to say, you know, why, or we don't
Okay.
just to get clear on that.
Yeah. Okay. In conversations with the Attorney General's office last week, counsel was informed this. With respect to public records requests that are directed through the Secretary of State's office, that law gives the Secretary of State the power to say, this level of request constitutes harassment and you don't have to respond. With respect to the open meeting law doesn't provide the Attorney General's office with this thing, say, enough, stop, Town of Acton, you don't need to respond anymore. So what they're suggesting that you do, what other towns do in those circumstances, is they write back, we've received the complaint, we've reviewed it, and we don't believe there's a violation, and the Attorney General's office, takes that as sufficient. So that would be the course in the future if it's complaints, the same complaint breeds another round of complaints,
So,
or even in the first instance.
so I'm so confused. So then are we agreeing that short little note should go out, or has constructively already gone out?
I think it would go out in the future. I don't know how Nina, I would think that may be the way how Nina and John plan to respond to the 3 complaints that we're dealing with tonight.
Okay.
Dean.
So pursuant to that, I would make a motion that we authorize the town manager and town council to respond in the fashion we described.
I have a motion, for us. David, do you have one further comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Jim, normally what Jim said is the correct response. So if you get an open meeting law violation, you believe it's not correct, you respond back with a statement saying why you think it's incorrect. So that's, yes, you're correct. That's the normal response.
So I would have this motion that we move to request town council and town manager to respond to Mr. Ballard's 3 open meeting law complaints received by the town on June 9 and 10, 2021 by informing him and the Attorney General's office that the board reviewed the complaints and does not believe any violation occurred. Is there any,
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? Being none, David, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I also say aye.
Okay.
That's unanimous.
Well, thank you. So our next item 5, was to discuss the transition to in-person meetings.
Thank you.
John.
So the state of emergency is ending in 4 hours and 8 minutes. And so when that ends, all the exemptions that were provided to allow us to meet virtually like this are going to disappear. There was work that has happened at Beacon Hill to extend some of those provisions, but that work is incomplete. My understanding is there's another legislative session tomorrow afternoon, which I hope would lead to something moving forward to the governor's office. But without having that be in place, we have to end, as of 4 hours from now, all virtual meetings and any virtual participation in any meetings, which is unfortunate because I think there's been a lot of positives to that virtual participation in particular. But because of the way that the open meeting laws work, it's not something that's provided for. Of course, a board member can participate remotely if there's a quorum and the chair is present, but there isn't really an allowance for citizen participation remotely, which has been so prominent in the last year or so. So some boards and committees that are recorded and shown on TV will have the ability to have people see and watch our meetings. But as of 4 hours from now, they will not be able to participate. So that means we got to start using all of our meeting rooms again. We have about 38 committees. There are about 20 weeknights in a month. We have one large meeting room and a bunch of small meeting rooms. So it's going to be sort of the problem that I think we all forgot about is back, which is a lack of meeting spaces for evening meetings. We've tried to add a few spaces. There's a new space that we've added at the house next to town hall. We're working on some plans for the house behind town hall, but those are not ready right now. So I guess the purpose of bringing this back to the board tonight is when we met last, the board said that, I believe you said that all boards and committees have to meet in person or remotely, but not hybrid unless otherwise authorized by the board. I think that direction can still be your policy goal, but it's something that isn't compliant with the law right now. So I just want to see how you want to address that starting tomorrow. I think we've already reposted everything that's scheduled for tomorrow. We were kind of waiting and hoping that we didn't have to, but we reposted everything tomorrow and the next day to be all 100% in person. And if something happens at the state level, we can address it. But I just want to let the board know that right now that's where we are.
I think we were careful in the motion that David crafted, that we said consistent with state law, we would do the following. And we obviously can't provide options. You could either meet in person, or the committee could decide to meet remotely, and then the board, individual requests will take for remote participation. We can't go that far until the legislature acts and tells us what we can do.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, sorry, go ahead.
Right, Dean?
Well, it is what it is. The good news is that we're getting into the summer where usually most boards and committees have a lighter meeting schedule. We're going to have our next select board meeting for 3 of us anyway on, I believe it's the 12th of July. So I think by that time, hopefully things have sorted themselves out on the state level, so we'll know where we can move forward to. But I think we just have to live with it, and hopefully people will bear with it. I know folks are disappointed because they've gotten used to the easy access, and that's not going to happen. But I think there's some really positive things about getting back into meeting in person too. So I'd say we just wait until we have our first meeting in July and deal with it then, get an update.
David?
Yeah, I think that we can leave our policy in place, because if the legislature comes through tomorrow, I think our policy was boards could meet either all in person or all remotely. If they pass something tomorrow and the governor signs it, the next morning, then, we can go back to how we had planned, and without having to have us meet again. So I would just leave our policy in place. Obviously, we have to adhere to state law, so.
Yeah, I would agree with your assessment. That's correct. So hopefully the legislature will do something in the next couple of days. The governor's piece of legislation was that the remote option would be available through the end of August, so they could be studied further and the like. But we'll see what comes out of it. Joan?
So I was just going to say, I've been impressed looking at the bottom of the screen during these meetings to see how many people are participating. And having sat in the room upstairs at Town Hall, if we have 3 or 4 people, it's a crowd. And to have 30 or 40 people at these meetings remotely, I think is good for the town.
Dean?
Yeah, I think, certainly it's nice to see that we've got 30 participants, but the one thing that we never really knew before is how many folks are watching on Acton cable TV. Certainly they're not able to intervene in a meeting, but they can certainly watch. And I think I'm constantly surprised with the number of people who comment on meetings they've watched. I didn't think we were all that entertaining, but apparently we are. And I think going forward, I mentioned this with the manager, that it's very important to make sure that we've got as robust an outreach through ActonTV, and that we make sure that everything is going to be up and running certainly in the big room anyway, so that people won't have the access to the Zoom like they have been. At least they have some assurance that they will actually be able to get decent audio and video through ActonTV.
Jim?
I don't think I have anything substantive to add. Just my personal sense of frustration that that my Commission on Disabilities was not able to turn on a dime, and their meeting tomorrow will be canceled because we can't assemble a quorum of people, from that community quickly enough to have a meeting. So I do hope the legislature gets its act together.
Okay. Any comments from the audience?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are 2 requests from the audience
Sure,
comments.
please.
And just as a reminder, if you could use your full first and last name, it makes it easier for us to identify you. First up is Franny Osman.
Hi, I had a question about the fully remote or fully in person. In normal times, as long as you have a quorum in person, people can participate remotely. Will that continue?
Well, members of the board or committee can participate remotely.
Oh, so that's the difference. So other participants cannot, according to that?
That's my understanding. Yeah. John, is that yours?
Yes, I think that was the open meeting law rules, is that a member can participate remotely if there's a quorum present, but there's not really a provision for public participation in public forum or public hearing remotely. That's not. It's a good idea, and I think it should be, but it isn't.
Right. I think we should definitely work toward that. I think it's an accessibility, and an access issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
There's one more from Dinah.
Sure.
All right, Dana should be able to speak. Oop, you are muted.
Hi, sorry about that delay. This is Dana Snydergrant from West Acton. I'm disappointed that they're going to stop these. This has been entertaining last year. But I first wanted to sort of say to the board that I think you've done an amazing job. It's been such a hard year, and you've had to go through a lot of stuff. You can see I'm very emotional about this, and I just really appreciate everything you've done. I am disappointed that, like others maybe, that the remote option won't be available for us participants, or us citizens who could access things much more easily if we can do it from home. And I guess one thing I wonder about is, and I don't know, John, if you know this, John Mangiarotti, I'm sort of surprised that the legislature can ignore the access issues for people. For people with disabilities who travel is difficult. I'm surprised that even before the pandemic, there was not an allowance for people to participate remotely. So I'm just wondering about that.
It was actually.
Yeah. John? Was that a question to John?
I think my understanding is before the pandemic, there was remote participation allowed by board members. But for example, if the planning board or the select board were holding a public hearing on something that there wasn't really an opportunity for someone to call in from a video or phone chat. Again, I think that's something that we're certainly going to push for, at least to help people that don't have the ability to access the meetings. It's been proven over the last year that it can be effective. And I believe that that's what's happening in Boston. That's what's happening right now, is they're working on it. It's just the timing is just off by a few days, which is creating a lot of complications
Right.
for us here.
It's interesting, just one other comment and I'll be quiet, that I know that we all have experienced gains and losses from this last year. And it's interesting that this has sort of been a gain for the citizens of this town, and I'm sure many towns. I'm sure we're not the only town that is dealing with this change. But anyway, so thanks to all of you.
Well, thank you for the kind comments, and I think select boards in all towns would share your sentiments and are looking to the legislature, to allow the option and the further option of remote citizen participation, because it's been just a wonderful boom to get people to watch, and we just see the numbers that go up on the participant block here, and that's been great. That's what you want to see. Jim, the other half.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Dana. I know you weren't just talking about me, but I appreciate your comments about the entire board. And I'm going to forward to John and to the chair of the COD, Franny, this note I just found about an exception to this regulation specifically for commissions on disabilities. It sounds like the open meeting law regulations have been changed to allow specifically commissions on disability to vote in the possibility of remote participation. So I'm no lawyer, so I'll let people who know more about the law evaluate this, but I did want to pass it on.
So is there any further comment from audience members?
There is a repeat hand up from Franny Osmond.
Okay, Franny.
If she has another comment or not.
Sure. Franny?
He's muted.
You do already have the ability to speak, Franny.
Oh, okay. I was actually just gonna, and I just emailed it to a few of you. I was gonna say the exact thing that Jim said. Austin had pointed out that law that helps the Commission on Disabilities, but it is not just the Commission on Disabilities that has trouble getting to meetings. I've often heard people say, oh, I'm not driving at night anymore. Sorry, I can't be on that committee anymore. What a shame to lose that resource. We really should not lose the resources of people who have any kind of mobility trouble getting there. So let's work this out. I'm sure we can. I echo what Dana said. You've been doing a great job, and I think we can continue with that creativity.
Thank you, Franny. David?
Yeah, not only people with mobility or nighttime vision problems, but people with kids, right? Kids often have to be put to bed around meeting times. But I think we're all committed to doing something here within the bounds of the law. So it's not up to us to be creative. It's up to our legislators to be creative, and then we'll do the best that we can within the bounds of the law to have to be able. I think especially for non-member participation, it's really important. And then and we have to figure out how to do mixed member participation. I will say again, having done remote meetings for years, it is really difficult to have member participation partially local, partially remote. It's not a problem having public comments remote, provided the law allows it.
Okay, so that's where we are. Is there any final comments from board members? Okay, so we're down to under 4 hours now for in-person meetings. So last item is to discuss annual town meeting. I just thought that Mark Hall put out an absolutely spectacular warrant that is just, complete with information on the town budget, the school budget, the finance committee's report, the ALG analysis. And I just hope, people take the time to go through the warrant, and certainly ahead of the meeting next Monday night. I think we have to be looking ahead at the weather forecast, and I know it could change. It looks like a 50% chance of rain in Acton during, the prime meeting hours, next Monday night, and Tuesday looks about the same. So, John and Mark were really good last year in pushing the bad weather off for several hours, and use those efforts again. So I noticed that we did get several comments came in over the weekend on Article 10 or Article 8 and Article 10. Two are David's articles, and I believe David was going to get in touch with those citizens who sent those notes in. And if we, if more comments come in with questions about the article that, we've been assigned, please go ahead and, and respond. I think the more information we can get out there and what we can answer and, correct the any unknowns or uncertainties, we'll do much better next Monday night. So questions, John?
Thank you. I just wanted to add that the board members all did a really nice job going over the studio and recording presentations for residents and voters to learn more about different articles before they attend town meeting. All of these articles are available on ActonTV. There's also an easy way to get to them on our website. If you go to actonma.gov/town meeting, town meeting is all one word in this case. And there you'll find the warrant, other town meeting related documents, and then all the links to all the videos that have been pre-recorded. So this is a great resource. There's probably more than an hour of information available there for you to learn more about town meeting before you come next Monday. So encourage you to
David?
I was wondering if John could tell us about town hall hours.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was. So I guess what I wanted to announce is that on Friday, town offices will not be open, and this is in observance of Juneteenth. So it's not a change to the hours necessarily, but it's just announcing that we're not going to be open on Friday. So that's what I wanted to try to fit that into the meeting. So thanks for reminding me. Juneteenth, as you all know, is the day that slavery was officially ended. At least in Texas, it took that long for. So Juneteenth is recognized each year on June 19th. On that day in 1865, Major General Gordon Granger and his Union troops landed in Galveston, Texas, and announced that the Civil War had ended. And at that time, he read a proclamation declaring that all enslaved people were free. The first Juneteenth was celebrated a year later in Texas. And then since then, it's been growing and it's recognized across the country. Governor Baker announced that it was going to be added to the official list of state holidays as of this year. So we are closing the town buildings and observing that holiday. So just thanks for reminding me, and we'll be back on Monday.
Is there anything with regard to any town meeting articles that we should be concerned about or work we would need to do? Jim?
Yeah, well, just first a brief note that I have also been getting questions on Articles 13 and 14 and 16. I've been getting back to people as quickly as I can. And the other thing I wanted to talk to the board about and get some feedback on was I raised my hand to say the statement about the planning board warrant articles 17 and 18. Mm-hmm. And I went back and listened to the, that part of our conversation and came up with a few sentences to say. And I wanted to run it by the board and make sure it, either, met our sense of what we were saying or if it was off base. So with your permission, I would read
it. Please, John. Yeah, okay. Please, Jim.
The select board discussed these articles at our May 24th meeting and decided unanimously to not recommend them. Our discussion included the observation that the planning board has had some difficulties, including low membership and the challenges of getting support from the planning staff at a time when the planning department has been reorganizing and rebuilding after the departure of staff. It was noted that neither of those issues would be helped by adding on an election process. There was some interesting disagreement on the select board about how much the planning board should take on reviewing or creating zoning bylaws and other planning issues. Having a future board discuss this first would be a good first step before reconsidering an elected planning board.
Yeah, that's good. I think also a point that I made, I think others may have picked up on it, is that the planning board is a quasi, judicial body. It's not an advocacy, board. We've got to stop development and we've got to have more development. It's basically taking the zoning bylaw, and enforcing it. And, oftentimes you're in situations where you go, I really don't like this, proposal, this development here, but it fits the statute. It complies with the statute, A, B, and C, and we can put conditions, not conditions that would defeat the permit. But so it's got to be, you got to think and contemplate, and it's a judicial body versus an advocacy board. I might work that in a little bit too. Yeah.
Well, I think that was part of where I was mentioning the interesting disagreements, because there are parts of the planning board charter that are specifically about developing laws, doing planning, being engaged in thinking about the bigger issues, having opinions about them, and working them out in the form of either policy or bylaws or zoning changes. So, but I've heard also your point of view, and not just from you, from a number of people. So it seemed like that's a discussion that the board needs to have and have a shared sense of before we want to even consider changes to the board.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to put it. That that it's really got to have much more thought developed behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on town meeting? Anything else we should be concerned about?
Just wondering if any of the other board members have thoughts about those sentences. Do they seem to cover what your concerns are? Are there other things that are missing?
I'm sorry, Dean?
Yeah, I think Jim portrays it pretty accurately. I'm comfortable with his statement. I mean, we don't want to. It's a dissent against a particular petition, and we don't want to spend half an hour arguing about it. I think he summarizes things well.
Thanks. I'll use it.
Anything else? Further comments on Jim's planning board statement? David.
Yeah, I don't think you need. I thought your statement, Jim, was good. I don't think you need to add to it. But actually, I would worry also about the overhead of making planning board members run. Right? They're already contributing to the town by being on a board that takes often has multiple meetings a month, and they're often long meetings. So it already takes significant time, and to have to put together a campaign and run every 3 years or whatever the term was, that's a significant piece of overhead. And some people have said to me that if that were current or former planning board members said if that was the case, that they don't think that they would have run.
Yep.
Okay, so anything else on town meeting? We're all set? Okay, so through them, if any issues, through John, let's, let him know. So that would be the end of new special business. We have a few consent items. 7 one-day alcoholic beverage license, Kelly Tierney, Narrow Park, July 1, 2021. 8 one-day alcoholic beverage license, Samantha Nago, Narrow Park, July 31, 2021. 9 accept gift recreation department for $25 from Gene Jones 10 to be used for constructing a dog park in Acton. Item 10, accept gift Recreation Department for $150 from William and Non Froberg to be used for constructing a dog park in Acton. Do I have then a motion to approve consent items 7 through 10 inclusive?
So move.
So move Joan. Second,
David,
second David. David, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay, so that would include the business of our special meeting for this evening. Town meeting starts at 6 o'clock. I suppose we should all be there. John, would you like us there at 5:30?
Sure.
Okay.
And just to confirm, we have no need of a pre-town meeting this year. Right there, I don't know of any issue. You know, some years we have a meeting an hour before town meeting to make recommendations on a last minute item or change, something like that. We don't need that this year, I don't think.
As of right now, it's not necessary, and we hope it isn't leading up to town meeting, but we'll let you know.
Okay, Jim?
David, you reminded me of that when you use that phrase pre-town meeting, that sometimes refers to the meeting that the moderator has, which is still going on. That's this Wednesday.
Wednesday at 7.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
And the Zoom link to get there. Oh, wait, can we have a Zoom meeting for this pre-town meeting? It's not an open meeting law meeting, I think, because it's not a officially sponsored town body. That's, yeah. So I might need some guidance on this before I would dial in.
Because a quorum of the board attends that, we've been posting it the last few years, and since it's posted, it's now a public meeting, and we're having it in the EOC in person.
Okay. So
we're at the public safety
The
building?
EOC is the training room in the public safety facility.
Okay.
I might recommend that somebody hop on the Zoom link that's published in the meeting warrant at that time to tell people that they can't participate except in person.
Is it
Because
6
it's
or
printed in the
7
meeting warrant.
o'clock?
7 o'clock.
7?
Yeah, it's printed in the warrant as happening by Zoom. So
Again, we're doing the best we can.
yeah, no, I realize it's awful. I'm not blaming you at all.
Someone could easily just start the meeting and share a screen that says, please go to the public safety building.
Yeah. And poor Ed McQuillan from Minuteman will have a long drive. I'll tell him.
All right. Pick them up. Okay, so if that does it, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Dean. David, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and I also say aye.